This is Ready, Set, Reiki, a podcast about Reiki, the universal energy life force, from the curious beginner to the seasoned master teacher, welcoming all systems, all lineages, and all levels. Reiki is a journey and not a destination. And on this Ready, Set, Reiki journey, we refer to ourselves as guides rather than hosts, as we too are traveling, supporting each other, and learning on this Reiki journey as well. And with that said, I am your guide, Tracy C. Wright. Joining me today on this journey is Ashley Brothers. Now, she is a motivational speaker, international life coach, practitioner, teacher of shamanic healing and energy medicine since 2004. She has studied with shamans, mystics, healers, doctors, scientists, and spiritual leaders from various cultures throughout the world to learn the most powerful and effective techniques that will help people heal from abuse, trauma, neglect, depression, anxiety, PTSD, addiction, and chronic illness. Her techniques are a blend of neuroscience and spirituality and effectively helped hundreds of people in 33 countries worldwide through her remote and in-person sessions and workshops. Ashley, welcome to Ready, Set, Reiki.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's begin our journey together. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, like you said in my bio, I have been doing shamanic healing as well as Reiki and other modalities such as pranic healing, using crystals to heal people, quantum healing, and several other techniques since 2004. But I was essentially born what I call awake. Meaning I was just even a baby. I could remember being weighed at the hospital or standing on the edge of my crib watching what I called gray people, but shadow beings walk around the room. And my poor parents could hear me, through the floor, expressing distress, essentially, that these things were touching me or trying to get in contact with me. But they weren't always like the super bright, shiny angel type beings. I sort of learned through the hard way. And so because I wanted to know more about these gifts and skills, I started my training in 2004 because I'm like, is there something I can do with this other than just be like a sitting duck for these sensations or these images or these things that were happening around me? Like people will have a spiritual awakening, but they're like, now what? What do I do with that? So I started my spiritual training and actually began with Usui Reiki to be.
Beautiful. So you said you began your journey with the Usui Reiki. So would you say that Reiki found you or you found Reiki?
I went searching. Well, it's a little bit of both. When I was starting out on my journey, my seeking journey, I was actually working for the government at the time. And I decided on my lunch break that I was sort of fed up with life and went off to go look for a tarot reader on my lunch break and had a tarot reading. And it wasn't until like the end when I'm about to pick up my purse where the lady's like, do you know that you can speak to the dead? If you are interested in developing that gift or skill, call this woman. And that particular woman was actually a shamanic practitioner, but she was, I think, reluctant to work with me at first. I think just because of where my mindset was, and suggested that I start with something like Reiki rather than going into the shamanic realms where you have to have a certain skill level to see or hear or really tap into those other realities. Whereas with Reiki, being able to channel universal life force energy, I feel like it's a lot easier. It's a lot more natural. People are a lot more capable of relaxing into it and allowing it to flow in the way that it's meant to, rather than trying to force your will or make something happen, if that makes sense.
Right. That's a great safe place to start here, right on your journey to build and go forward. So it makes a lot of sense. Is that level one is that self-healing. We need to work on that. So many people are just so excited to share this with the world, but they need to pause and really work on themselves. And through that opens up all these gifts, that we already have within us. They just are asleep. So it's just as said you were born awake. This is helping you clear the clutter, right?
Yeah.
Within, so that you were able to move forward into your role of being shamanic work.
Yeah, well, it also helps you trust yourself. Like
Absolutely.
when you
Yeah.
first start off, like even at like I was a massage therapist for a while. Like when you start off that, you're like, do you feel that soft spot or do you feel like that adhesion or that lump? And you're like, no. It starts to like build up your sensitivity to the different energies that may present themselves and where they come across as a feeling in your body, an emotion, a color, or like whatever. You start to sense all the different ways in which energy can present itself and how to interpret it and things like that without this almost like pressure on you to, I don't know, make things happen or do things right. I feel like it was such a great introduction to any type of energy healing because they're like, just place your hands here and allow. And you're like,
Right.
okay, I can do that. And the more you do that, the more adept you get again at sensing energies, but also just to allow the process to happen. So
Right.
it was a kind and gentle introduction to all the other energy healings I tried.
Beautiful. So you have stated that you have tried different types of healing modalities. You've been doing this since 2004. What is a common misconception that you find about your work, about the Reiki?
Well, in some cases, people think that you have to be in person, and that's not true. I work with people all over the world, basically everywhere except Antarctica. So like the other 6 continents that are on the planet. And oftentimes, just, like if you think about quantum physics, where attention goes, energy flows.
Mm-hmm.
Also, too, when you put your attention on somebody, it's like a form of quantum entanglement where your field can then connect with somebody else's. And so I've had clients say that they feel like they have 10 pairs of hands on them, or they feel like they're tingling, or what have you. So one of the misconceptions is that it's only effective if you're in person where they can actually, literally see you, feel your hands on you, but you don't have to, again, be anywhere near them to be just as effective. In some cases, more so.
Right.
Um, Another misconception is, I don't know. I think sometimes people are afraid of it. They're afraid of energy. Like, what are you going to do to me? Or they think it's hocus pocus. Like a lot of people think it's a woo woo thing.
Right.
And it's not. I mean, like I said, literally they're doing testing, like scientific testing to show that there is energy that is transferred from one person to another. And that when you put that body back into homeostasis of like neutral or better, the body can heal itself. So whether that's the practitioner doing it or the practitioner is just holding space for this energy to move through in a way that it's supposed to, it's not woo woo. I mean, to be honest, like I said, it's scientific. So it goes on both sides of the fence there. And I think another thing too is like sometimes people think that it's the be all end all. Meaning that if you go get a healing, that means you don't have to do your work.
Right.
And so like I try to give people certain techniques or homework to take home with them that they can continue their healing process. Otherwise, sometimes people will go back into maybe toxic situations or environments and wonder why they feel cruddy again. And they're like, didn't you heal me? Didn't you do this thing? I'm like, yes, but if you put yourself back into the environment that harmed you to begin with, then sometimes you need to have, another session, if that makes sense.
Right. And it's just so interesting the point that you make about that remote healing. When you look at prayer, right? Where you wish on a penny or you wish on a star or you blow out that birthday candle to make that wish, it's that same energy. They can believe in that, right? But not believe that, someone's holding space and they're connecting with that energy. And as you had mentioned, you worked with the holy fire, that's the pure source. So the practitioner through those experiences, they're to the side, they're letting the energy do the work, which is more refined and pure. And as practitioners, we do our best to be that hollow bone, but, at times maybe unintentionally our energy could kind of seep in there as we try our best to, be that open channel. Right. You have a lot of very good points there. And even with the woohoo, I did a little market recently and I had my table and someone came over and she read it and she's like, oh yeah, I don't do that. I don't do that, and walked away.
Oh yeah. I mean, when I was having medical problems years ago, like I had open heart surgery, and in the hospital at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, on the list of options for aftercare, not only did they give you a meditation CD before you even began so that you could put yourself in a better state of mind before surgery, but they gave you the options of color therapy, massage therapy, and Reiki in the hospital room, because they truly understood that it can help decrease pain and fatigue and depression and anxiety, and just really put somebody into that relaxed state, which is essentially alpha theta, which is what neurofeedback specialists use to treat people for depression, anxiety, and PTSD.
Right.
And so people often don't understand what's happening when to the client when that's occurring.
Right. Just another stress reducing modality, such as say yoga nidra, where it takes you through the brainwaves as well. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So you have helped hundreds of people in 33 countries worldwide. So what has been the biggest challenge, or rather struggle, you have faced in your own healing journey?
You mean like things that have happened to me? Oh, wow. Okay. That's
as you have been of service in many other people's struggles, what has been something you have faced?
So, I want to say I had just started my Reiki training, and then also massage therapy at the same time. And right when I had graduated from massage school, I ended up having a surgery to remove some ovarian cysts from my body. And I didn't realize it, but the doctor had left something inside of me. And I just didn't feel good. No matter how many, healings I would have afterwards, I just never felt quite right. And at that time, I had also started my shamanic training to really get in touch with my psychic skills and my guides. And what I heard was that I had something inside of me that would take my life if I didn't have it looked at. And so they meaning guides, were very much pressuring me to go to the doctor. And the doctors were like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just bloated or constipated. You should just go home. And I refused, because I just kept getting that strong intuition that I needed to press for a medical test. And when I got the results back, they found like these 2 grapefruit-sized masses that had fused all of my organs together and then stuck to my abdominal wall. And when the doctor got a hold of the results, they were saying some very strange things like, I don't know how we missed it, stuff like that. And I said, missed what? And they went silent. So my guide suggested I go to another doctor, and they went in and found these 2 grapefruit-sized abscesses that contained a large wad of gauze.
Wow.
And so my guides were very much like, okay, this is what's happening. And then after that, about 8 months later, I ended up having to have a total hysterectomy, because the infection not only had not stopped, but the suture material from both surgeries had not dissolved. So my organs fused together again, and they ended up having to remove the uterus, the left ovary, and surgically separate all of my organs a second time.
Wow.
And then after that, about 8 months later, I collapsed in the shower with chest pain and shortness of breath, and found that I had an inflammatory condition that the doctors said was totally unrelated to the years of infection. They tried to blow it off. In fact, I had 33 doctors refuse me care 40 doctors refuse me care in 3 different states.
Wow.
And they were basically telling me I was crazy. They said I was mentally ill, that there's something wrong with me. And through that guidance that I was getting, they said, order your records. So I ordered my test results, read them, and found I had a rare autoimmune disease that was eating through my arteries and my aorta.
Wow.
And it had cut off 90% of the blood to my left arm and most of it to my legs. And that I ended up having 4 hernias, a collapsing intestine, a twisted bowel. And then I started having seizures every day and 16 strokes. So it went on and on and on.
Yeah.
And because I was being refused care, it was my guides that were coming in and really telling me, this is what you need to stop eating and start eating to turn off this condition. Like they're really clear about not having sugar or dairy or gluten or any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about stuff like turmeric, which I knew nothing about, or oregano and rosemary, things that are herbal ways to kill bacteria and fungus. And then they led me on this journey of finding the doctor that was willing to put the synthetic tubes in my chest to give me the blood to both my legs, my left arm, and my brain. Wow. So these guides have been with me for a very long time. And there was a period where I had lost my memory for 2.5 years because a stroke wiped out my ability to read or do math or even recognize faces, including my own. Wow. So it's just been a really long journey. But what really brought me back was these guides, the combination of Reiki and shamanism. And that's what really got me so inspired to help other people throughout the world on their healing journey, because a lot of times Western medicine is great for things like acute traumas, like you break a bone, you need a surgery, something like that. But for chronic illnesses, it's often an energy imbalance that then becomes mental, emotional, or physical in nature.
Wow. Wow. And thank goodness you did listen to your guides. I mean, wow. And that you had that support and the downloads to guide you through this, because, you were trying to get the answers from man. Right. And they were failing you each time. So you redirected and look upward, right, for the guidance that helped you. Right.
Yeah. They basically said I'd have to be on chemotherapy, like low dose chemotherapy and prednisone until I died. And I never have taken any of it.
Right.
They also said it'd be a permanent condition. I don't have it anymore. I don't have any seizures. I have not had any strokes in years. My hernias, my organs rearranged themselves, so I no longer have the 4 hernias. Wow. I'd had a paralyzed gut for 3 years and I couldn't eat solid food. All of that nerve damage corrected itself. And so like through the energy healing work and with the help of my team here, guides, spirit guides.
Right. Wonderful. Wonderful. So you have been in this energy work for 20 years. So as you were on your journey here, what do you wish your younger self knew about your current profession?
Oh my goodness. To not be so hard on myself, to trust myself. Like when I first was starting this journey, I was painfully insecure because of a history of childhood trauma. And so I didn't know that if I was worthy to do the work. And one of the things that my guides told me on my first vision quest with the Lakota was, don't ask me if you're worthy, because that's a human judgment that has no place in the realm of spirit. I want to know if you're willing.
Oh, wow.
Willing to do the work despite disappointment, despite fear of looking like a fool or not making it work for that person. Because we can't help everybody. Some people are very resistant, or that whatever's going on inside of them is stronger than whatever work that we can do, or it's just not part of their journey. So I wish my younger self had just been a little less hard on herself and not listening so much to the haters, because there's a lot of people out there that will try to shame you for doing, again, what's quote unquote woo woo.
Right. So when it is time for you to get your energetic tune up, is you do, self-care on yourself and you just get to that point where you need to bring in, a little higher frequency. Qualities do you look for in a Reiki practitioner, shaman, mystic, or healer? What do you look for?
Well, I'd look for experiences. I make training. To be honest, there's a lot of people out there, so I'm just a natural, and no offense, I don't trust that because
Right.
I don't know where they're getting their energy from. And so I really do ask them, what is your training? How many years of experience do you have? What do people usually experience with you when they undergo these types of sessions? Because there are so many people out there that call themselves shamans or Reiki healers or masters, but they have zero training.
Right.
And when I tap in with my energy or my intuition, I feel gross, like just thinking about it. And so, because there's some people that will work with energies and they just assume it's an angel or just assume it's a benevolent spirit.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling something that's like icky. Or it's the practitioner themselves. Like I'll ask, like, what kind of healing work do you have done? Because sometimes a practitioner who doesn't do their own personal work may transfer whatever they have unresolved within them onto the person. And so I think training and experience is one of the biggest, things, and how they explain their work. Do they sound knowledgeable, or are they so vague that you have no idea what they're talking about?
And there's so many, especially when you go on TikTok. I mean, as I'm scrolling, just so many, it gets overwhelming. So I can see how someone can look at this and be like, where do I begin? Who do I trust? Where do I go to? And there's so many different systems out there that even I'm on this journey now. I'm finding different systems and I'm having people come on to talk about it so we can learn. And that way you can find that right one for you, because a Zui may not be the right one for you. Maybe holy fire, right? Maybe you resonate with the animal Reiki, right? Maybe money Reiki. So that way you can find it in your journey. You don't necessarily have to stay there, but maybe beginning in a Zui will take you to being a shaman, right? Maybe a light worker, maybe a tarot reader. So you never know. You never know. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes I've had, even in the shamanic realm of things, I've gone from teacher to teacher to teacher. Foundation for Shamanic Studies, Four Winds, Bola Banstola, Betsy Bergstrom, like people all over the place until I felt complete.
Sure.
And they started to overlap each other or certain things like that, and so like, you may have the same training over and over again, but another person may make it more understandable to you. It may seem like more powerful to you just because of the energy transmission between you and that teacher.
Sure.
Or something just clicks that maybe didn't click before just through the different interactions. The same thing happened with Reiki. I had multiple Reiki teachers. And I'm like, oh, that's what that person was trying to say, because some people don't speak or teach as well as others.
Sure.
And the same thing, just sort of like going back to your other question of like, how does somebody find a Reiki practitioner? Call around and vet them. And if you feel a resonance, even in just talking to them, your body will let you know. You may feel like a level of resistance, like, or like, I don't know what it is about you, but I just feel good.
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah. And even, as you meet people as well, I know in my experience as a practitioner, working with certain clients, and if it just gets to the point where, I think you need something higher, and bringing in a shaman. I've had it where I have felt I've walked in this journey with you as far as I can. We need to bring another person in to help you on a deeper level. So to have that, being humble that I may not have all the answers, right? But I'm looking at that client's best interest and perhaps referring that to someone else in that journey as well. Yeah. So do your homework for sure, right?
Oh yeah.
Ask the questions.
Yeah, and I have people like a lot of my clients are either doctors, therapists, like
Mm-hmm.
psychiatrists or nurses, and then they send their patients to me because they're like, and there's one guy in particular, he always sends something specific to me, and his patients will be like, I don't know why I'm here, but he just said, come see you. And I'm like, I know you have an entity attached to you. I, I have to be like a little careful how I say things,
Yeah, of
but
course.
that's why a person might go to a shamanic practitioner if they feel
Yeah.
cursed energy or some sort
Yes.
of darker spirit type thing that the universal life force energy, like Reiki, wouldn't necessarily resolve that issue, you
Right,
know?
right. And even years ago, I had taught transitional kindergarten, and in a staff meeting, it was at a Christian school, and even at the staff meeting, our principal was a preacher, and he wasn't involved in Reiki or anything, but he had even said in a meeting one time where he went to a chiropractor, and just the energy from the chiropractor didn't feel good. Like he just
Yeah.
didn't feel good in the space. And he even warned then, all those years ago, he says, be careful who you let lay hands on you. Be very
Oh, yeah.
mindful. And that was he could even sense it, even though he wasn't in this part of the world, of Reiki. So, yeah, so be very mindful of that connection. You'll know it if it resonates with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, like a lot of people don't realize like your heart has like this bundle of 44,000 neurons that generates the largest electromagnetic field in your body. And, there is power in proximity. And if you have a higher vibrational person around a lower vibrational person, if that lower vibrational person is stronger in energy than you are, that higher vibrational person will lower by a minimum of 30% in
Yeah.
their energy, their mood, their performance, and everything else. And that's why, like your environment can truly affect you. And
Yeah.
so if you go see a practitioner and you don't like them, don't keep going back. You know what I mean? Or
Mhm.
just talking to them on the phone. Now, some people, they don't feel like they're that sensitive. They don't know what to tap into, but usually there's a feeling in your body that's either
Mhm.
resistance or this expansion that's like, yes, or, eh.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you have been blessed to have worked with hundreds of people worldwide, been
Yes.
teaching and been doing this for quite some time. What advice would you give someone who's just entering this profession?
Oh, do your work.
Mm.
What I mean by do your work is do, do your healing work, get healings done on you. Be really mindful again of just of the people that you hang around with. If you have negative relationships in your life or you have toxic situations, it's going to bleed over into your work in some way, shape, or form. And I know there's this wounded healer mystique out there that's almost like this is I was wounded, so then it's so amazing that made me a healer. But if you still have the patterns of woundedness, meaning they're still active in you and you're still in your druthers like depression, anxiety, PTSD, really get strong in your own personal work on a regular basis, because otherwise you may project onto another person and not interpret the energy correctly because you yourself are being triggered. You know what
Yes.
I mean? You may assume that you're having the right answer, but it's not. It's your filter is what you're perceiving what's going on with that client. So definitely do your personal work. Also know your limits, because a lot of people don't realize that if you are not constantly clearing your energy, you get burned out. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care if you're a massage therapist, a psychotherapist, a Reiki master, whatever it is, but nobody ever talks about the burnout, the secondary trauma that happens just through listening to somebody's stories or through putting your hands on them and absorbing them if you are not clearing yourself on a regular basis. So really be good about your energy hygiene, your mental, emotional, and energetic health and well-being. Stay up with your like your training.
Yeah.
Because there's something that happens like when you keep going through trainings. I mean, after a while, you become the teacher, not just the student. But when you do that, you are no longer stagnant. Something can happen sometimes when you are going through more trainings that upgrade your energy field to something stronger, more powerful, more effective than maybe you had 20 years ago.
Absolutely. And especially with Holy Fire, you know, when you get that master and you have that ability to teach, you're doing the experiences along with that. You're able to keep continuing if you ask and your guides allow it to have those ignitions. So you're keeping that upgrading. And especially if you're someone who's an empath, right? It's like that static cling, you pick it up. So you have to just be aware of that and do your Reiki, do what you need to do. Whether it's laying at bed at night and listening to a meditation, you got to fill your cup up because you will get burned out.
Well, and that's where it's not only mental health, like doing your meditations and stuff, you have to be physically strong. If your body is weak, you will pick up stuff from other people. So whether you're going to the gym or you're doing something, your physical strength, like your literal strength and wellness is really important to your mental health and your energetic health. Because if your body is super weak, you limit who you can work with, but you also become this sponge that's absorbing everything. And you need, when you're super strong, I call it super strong, but if you're stronger, then your resilience and tolerance to stress is higher, which means you don't necessarily absorb as much from other people, because that's one of the problems that empaths have. And I make the differentiation between an empath and a clairsentient. A clairsentient person will still read the room, but they're not going to be the sponge that takes it home.
Right.
The empath, so much of the time, like I want to say like 90-something% of the time, has a history of trauma. Absolutely. And they have learned to become hypersensitive to their environment to stay emotionally safe. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're accurate in interpretation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, they just feel triggered.
That child. Yeah, that inner child work that you have to keep working on and resetting and acknowledging.
Yeah. So things like heart math or breath work, something that will help you to maintain your neutrality even in the presence of a stressor, and really just, again, just maintaining that neutral observer place, sort of like the Buddhists talk about equanimity, non-reaction.
Right.
When you're in that place and you're not feeling responsible for the outcome, that's another thing too. Do your best with your clients, but don't be so entangled with them. Don't have such bad boundaries that you feel like you have to be the be all, end all, force your will in your own way, in your own timing to achieve their healing, or you feel bad about yourself.
Sure. Non-attachment.
Yeah, total non-attachment, because that's the only way true Reiki comes through. Otherwise, you start pushing your own energy or your own agenda, and then you will feel drained afterwards.
Right.
That's when you can tell the difference. You feel drained. That wasn't just pure Reiki.
Absolutely. And that's what I tell my students. If you're feeling drained, then you're mixing your energy. You have to reset. You should be charged up, right? And like gassing you up.
And also, Reiki comes through you. You shouldn't be absorbing from the other person.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because usually if you're doing it properly, you feel good. You feel energized. You feel great. You don't feel like you all of a sudden are like dirty now.
Yes.
You know, after a session. So that tells me something too. Sometimes, you know, people, they're just not quite clear on even what it feels like to do Reiki, meaning like allowing something just to come through and trust. Right. That there's a total surrender that happens when you're doing Reiki, where it's not about you. Yeah.
Because in that first training, it's like, but I'm not feeling it in my hands. I heard I would have it in my hands. I'd feel heat or I feel tingling. And well, if you're an empath, you're going to feel it everywhere, right? So you gotta just trust this process. Just let it go. Sometimes, you know, it may happen later for that client. They might have a great night's sleep, right? So you're just trusting the process. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes people that they're so they're busy and they have something going on at home. And so,
Mm-hmm.
there are some people that will relax and they're snoring away and they're in their floaty
Right.
place. And there's other people who are thinking about their checkbooks and burgers and their to-do
Absolutely.
list and like their dog at the vet,
Yes.
And so sometimes the delayed effect will either happen later that night, or in some cases, maybe it's a week down the road when
Sure.
they least expect it because they're not trying to force it.
Right. Right. So what books do you recommend?
Oh my goodness. You mean in terms of Reiki?
Anything that has helped you on your journey.
Okay. Awakening to the Spirit World by Sandra Ingerman is one of my favorite books. I think it's called The Four Insights, but it's not the one that people are thinking about in terms of like Don Miguel Ruiz.
Okay.
I'm talking about Alberto Villoldo. He has a way of teaching people how to change their different states of perception to get more information. Like going from physical to the mental, emotional, to the symbolic, to the energetic, and really learning to change channels on yourself to get more information about the same thing. It's like turning the dial on a TV or radio station to get more information. Or even his book, Shaman, Healer, Sage. I love that book as well. Oh goodness. Soul Retrieval by Sandra Ingerman. Hands of Light. What was her name? Is it something Brennicky? Oh goodness. I'm so sorry, people. Oh, my mind is drawing a blank. I should know the answer to this question. I want to say, just as a normal human being, oh my goodness, I just said it, the book by Don Miguel Ruiz. It wasn't Four Insights. It was oh my goodness. I'm drawing a blank. Okay. Pass.
Very good. All right, let's go to our next question then. So what other services do you offer? And do you offer classes, events, workshops, trainings?
Yeah, so I do psychic readings, but usually what I do with the readings is I have people send me their questions in advance, because what I like to do is channel on them. And I do a form of written channeling where I can sit there up to 8 hours and write down everything that my guide tells me about their topics or their questions. And then I also include a tarot spread. So when this actual session happens, I will share all the notes that I downloaded from my guide, email them to them later, but also do a tarot spread that is about obstacles and challenges, solutions, and things coming up for them. And then they can ask any additional questions that they may have not have thought of in the moment. I also do what's called spiritual counseling and healing sessions, where people come in and just share what's weighing on their hearts. And then I explain what's happening in both ordinary reality and non-ordinary reality that's causing those situations. Because I like to look at things from both sides of the fence, because sometimes it is just an ordinary reality problem. It is not an actual spiritual issue. So I listen to what they have going on, give them some practical advice from a shamanic or Reiki perspective. I also give them tools like heart math that they can use at home to build up their resilience and tolerance to stress and create new reference patterns that have nothing to do with the past. And then I do healing itself. And then I have a session that's a combination of that full detailed reading with the healing. And then I do workshops in different shamanic modalities.
Beautiful, beautiful. So where can we find you? Are you in person? Are you online? If someone wants to book a session with you, how can we get in touch with you?
So they can go to my website, which is www.bonesoftheearth.org, or they can find me on Facebook under my name, Ashley Brothers, or Institute of Conscious Evolution. And I do sessions in person in Bend, Oregon, or online all over the world through either WhatsApp, Zoom, Skype, that type of thing.
Beautiful. All right. Well, ends our first part of our journey together, but I'm going to continue to guide you into the next part of our journey, which are questions from our listeners and Reiki students. So here we go. Question number 1. I have heard that to be a shaman, you must go through many difficulties and suffering in your own life. Is that true?
That's a good question. A lot of times people think that, well, first of all, the term shaman is culturally specific to Siberia and only Siberia. And so that's where there is this misconception of what true shamanism is. It is a term that was brought over by European anthropologists to the West. And so there are people in every culture throughout the world that believe that there is consciousness within everything that they could connect to, communicate with, or interact with for information, power, protection, or healing. And that category of individual has now been coined a shaman. And so the traditional shamans, yes, that would be true. They would often have things like mental illness. They may have seizures. They may have tremendous struggles, because what that does is it opens you up in such a way where your senses are seeking a solution, and you will often be so sensitive to that spiritual realm, which is what I experienced when I was dying. I saw things with my eyes wide open that I did not see when I was well. I mean, because that dying process, it's like you're huffing ether all day, and you are in between worlds. Like your brainwave frequencies are constantly in two worlds at once. And so that suffering will often open up a person to those capabilities. And then it's up to them to go through initiation after initiation after initiation, not only with their human teachers, but with the spirits, to prove that they are worthy and capable. I say worthy, but that they were capable really of being a healer. Because just suffering in itself, it does not make a person a healer if they can't manage, their emotions or even their skill set properly. But in the traditional way of shamanism, yes, they often went through suffering. But the way in which the term shaman is used now, that's not always the case, because people go to shaman school and they take all these classes, and they may not have had a bad childhood, or they may have not have had a horrible illness or whatever. So traditionally, yes. Now, not necessarily.
Necessarily. Right. So you have studied with a variety of individual shamans, healers, doctors, scientists, and you have learned to use techniques to blend neuroscience and spirituality. So what technique would you use for someone who suffers from anxiety? That is our second question from our listener.
Well, that's interesting. So I usually have a blend of 3 techniques that I use when I'm working on people who have anxiety. One is Reiki. I usually start off my sessions with Reiki by placing my hands on their head and their shoulders and things like that. But then at some point I will get up and I will start singing different doctoring songs in different languages. I'm using my voice. I'm using rattles. I'm using drums and bells because if a person has anxiety, it can come from different sources. It could come through dysregulation of your nervous system, in which I will, again, use either shamanism, Reiki, or heart math to help a person go back into homeostasis, or even craniosacral therapy. That's another thing that I will blend in. So there's 4 different things I will blend in just to get the nervous system to reset out of fight, flight, or freeze. But if a person has anxiety because they have a spirit attached to them, sometimes just removing the spirit will be useful. Or if they have a history of abuse, trauma, and neglect, and they have what's called soul loss, meaning some part of their consciousness left, or they themselves have pushed it out through dissociation, They may have anxiety because they are not fully embodied. So having the shamanic, method of soul retrieval to help that consciousness safely come back in, not the wounded part that left, but the fully healed aspect that they need to move forward in a good, true, beautiful way. And then with the heart math, I actually teach my clients how to regulate their breathing, basically doing heart focused breathing, where they are just notice the air going in and the air going out. And doing that for 3.5 to 5 minutes will help reset their nervous system. So it's sort of a blend of things where I want to give people the tools that they can do it themselves. And I've often found with my clients, if they use heart math once or twice a day, every day for a couple of weeks, they become different people because they really build up the resilience and tolerance to stress and create new reference patterns that have nothing to do with the past. So people will often say they have a life review without the emotion after like a couple weeks. But that means that they may see their past entirely differently because they've neutralized anything that they felt about a person or an event or circumstance that traumatized them.
Right, right. And I like that you're a practitioner that gives the tools for your client to go home and use instead of just, okay, here we go and send it on the way. So you're getting down to that deep rooted issue instead of putting that kind of, in a sense, Band-Aid on it. So that's great to hear that you're giving them the breath work, right? You're giving them the technique, or whether you give them an affirmation or something that they can take home and work on it to know that they're making progress towards their goal.
Yeah, I mean, with the heart math, I mean, they use it for people who have been victims of sex trafficking or war or domestic violence or something like that. And they're finding when people get their heart and brain in coherence, that they really, truly do reset themselves. And if you have enough cells basically in your body going back to neutral or better, you stop things like, again, like the adrenaline, cortisol, depression, anxiety, or in some cases, people will heal themselves from things like stage 4 cancer because they're going back into homeostasis and they're no longer in dysregulation. And people feel far more empowered when they can do it themselves, even in a moment of stress.
Yes.
So if you practice the techniques when you don't need them, you will go through an event and go, oh my God, that thing would have just brought me to my knees before, but now I didn't even notice. But also if you're using it in the middle of a stressor, then you can often navigate your way through it a lot faster and easier than you would have without it. Otherwise, people sometimes spend years in a traumatized state because they're still going through that cycle of dysregulation. So if you can stop it yourself and reset yourself, you feel more confident, more empowered, happy, healthy, what have you.
And it goes back to, you got to do the work.
Yes. Otherwise, you keep going back to practitioners and wondering why they're failing you.
Exactly.
When you can be dosing yourself with this neutral or better energy all day long or anytime. Yeah.
Right. Our third and final question, what inspired you to become a motivational speaker? And the second part of that is, did your spiritual work help with your confidence for public speaking?
Oh my goodness. Well, that's so funny you should ask that question. So the first time that I was going to do something that that was related to public speaking, I had just finished with a client, and one of my friends who is also a shamanic practitioner says, what are you doing? Told her I just finished. And she's like, well, you have 5 minutes to get to this address. I'm like, okay, what am I doing? She's like, you're going to be in a play. And so I had absolutely no idea that when I showed up, you know, everybody's staring at me like there's like 11 or 12 other people in this room. I'm like, I'm here for the play. And they start laughing at me. I'm like, what? And I said, you're here to tell the worst story of your life. It was called This Is My Brave. It's a syndicate that's throughout the United States. And so I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. So I had to write out my story and practice it over and over again, pacing up and down the living room, practicing on the stage so that I could do it without crying or blubbering or what have you. But I also knew it was this moment where I could finally tell my story especially about what happened to me after being denied care so many times as if I was crazy. So I had this moment of almost like vindication. But after that, my guides were like, okay, now you're going to start public speaking. It's like, do we know me? Because I used to like literally for years, I would have to take tests over after school because I had such bad performance anxiety that I would flunk them in class, have to redo them after school. Or even in the public speaking thing, like if I had to read a report, I would cry and fail for years. And my guides told me that I had to get over myself. And so they said that I needed to get over the selfishness of my self-consciousness because I only helped those that I thought were of no challenge, or that I wasn't afraid of looking like a fool, or I could still hide. And they said, this is not your work. This is our work. You don't do this alone. And so because they were so instrumental in me staying alive, I felt it was my duty and my obligation to listen to those beings that were loved me so much, but were also willing to show up for all of my clients. So I was nervous. I was nervous over and over and over again for years. But the practice makes perfect. The more you do something, the more confident you become, and the more opportunities my guides would give me, like people calling me that I was not looking for speaking gigs, but people were calling me and interviewing me based on previous things. So I just said, okay, this is your will. I will do this. Just again, to help as many people as I could so that they didn't go through what I went through.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Well, that is our last question. But as we've been talking, is there something you may have forgotten or something that you would like to share with our listeners? You can take this moment now if you have a message or something you want to share.
Yeah, one of the things I've been finding since the pandemic happened is a lot of people will say that they feel like they died, or they feel like disconnected, or they no longer feel like themselves because of some sort of paradigm shift or disconnection from friends and family or lifestyle or career for so long. And so part of this is not to try to pick up the pieces of the shattered mirror to try to get their life back, but to focus on who do I want to become, and really like tap into what does it feel like? What is the ideal version of myself? What would I be doing? Where would I go? Who would I be with? And really get that vision solid and meditate on that vision. Feel the joy of living that and really have unwavering faith in the person that you hope to become. And just sit in that as if you are already it. And the more you do that, the more you start to become that. Also, too, be very careful of where you put your energy. Don't say negative things to yourself. Don't have a mental diet of watching and listening to negative people or negative social media, because it will drain your energy. It will program your subconscious into fear-based states. So be very cautious of where you spend your time. And a lot of people found that they ended some toxic relationships throughout 2023. And don't feel bad about it if you're one of them, because this really is a time of ending the things that no longer serve you and stepping into the things that will bring you that level of happiness and abundance and prosperity that you're seeking. But you have to be devoted to that. You can't have one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. Just have, again, that unwavering faith in what you truly want, and just love yourself to pieces.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Ashley, so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to join me on this journey.
Thank you. I had a wonderful time. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. And, what resonated with what your guides had said is that we don't do this alone. We're not meant to do this alone. So, if you're ready for the journey, the helpers will be there. The guides will be there. So just trust the process. All right, my wonderful listeners, if you would like your question featured on the podcast, just reach out at www.readysetreiki.com or get in touch with me on social media. Also check out Feather Sister Wellness, which offers a variety of online and in-person classes in El Paso, Texas of yoga and Reiki, and also Reiki trainings. So my name's Tracy Seawright, and this has been Ready, Set, Reiki.